أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا رحمة للعالمين بالقاسم محمد والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. All praise and glory belongs to Allah, the creator of the multiverses, the one who has blessed us with an opportunity to understand Him and to understand ourselves. And through that guidance, He has provided all of the things that are necessary for a human being to be able to tap into the potential that He has ordained for us. Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam is one of those personalities that in the history of humanity, he is one of those personalities that is probably the most either not understood or misunderstood. And probably maybe one of the reasons is that because we limit ourselves to one or two angles, or we just don't utilize the capacity to be able to understand through multi levels or angles. People were not able to understand individuals who had traits in their personalities that in the norm or the regular thinking or the limited thinking of human beings, they don't fit. That if you have someone who's a warrior, then how is that person being able to cook food and then feed through his own hands to the orphans? because to be a warrior requires a heart that is hardened, that is to the point where you're able to take a life of another person, or Imam Ali being having Zulfiqar and cutting the limbs, and that whoever came in front of him did not survive. So you have an individual like this who comes home, gives a blood-drenched sword to a lady who's the Lady of Light, who takes that sword and washes it, and he's also a husband with a kind heart, that he's able to have a relationship with his wife and his children. And then he's a philosopher as well. He has his speech is so wide, is so deep, that people's minds would boggle, and it would be to the same caliber as the Holy Quran. And he's also a worshipper, where he's worshiping all night, and in the state of worship he's crying and he's trembling and shaking. Then he also has, he's called Babul Ilms. He has all of this knowledge that has been given to him by the Holy Prophet, and that knowledge from the Holy Prophet has been, the knowledge of the Holy Prophet was the knowledge given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the Holy Prophet did not have a teacher. And then through that, he, gives the same knowledge to Imam Ali alayhi salam, and he has the title of Babul Ilm. But then someone who's supposed to be knowledgeable and someone who has a higher status, you will not find them sitting on the ground having food with beggars. Someone who is the head of a government, and the government is such that half of the world is under the governance of that individual, you will not find that individual sitting on dirt and having these clothes that even the layman, like the lowest class of that society, would be wearing, and then sitting on dirt and just having no sense of projection that he owns or is governing half of the world. That when asked, what is this government to you, he replies that it is not its worth to me as the shoes that I'm wearing. And when it has been asked that what is the worth of those shoes, and then in the worldly view, those shoes did not have a worth, that you could not even resell them. So you have, you have all of these sort of opposites to the normal thinking of human beings, and because there are so many different angles and aspects of the personality of Imam Ali alayhi, that it always became difficult for human beings to be able to understand him. And till today, we are going through that process of understanding Imam Ali alayhi. So in my mind, because we're in his days, and I wanted to just sit down and just talk to you, but I thought maybe just handle a few questions, and just to move things forward. Okay, so we have, I think, 2 people. So now some of the questions here is asking for help from Imam Ali alayhi salam. First would be, is it possible? Second is it okay? Right? Is Imam Ali alayhi salam alive? And if we say that he's dead, then you can only ask for help who's alive, because someone who is dead can't help. Or what can we ask for help? Only material things, or can we ask for everything? Right? And then if it's okay, is it allowed in Islam? How does that make it all right when we are supposed to only ask for help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And if we ask for help from Imam Ali alayhi salam, then who's helping? Is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helping, or Imam Ali alayhi salam? And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is helping, why ask Imam Ali alayhi salam? And then um, these questions will arise in the minds of the people who are asking for help from Imam Ali alayhi salam, but also these will become objections to us who are asking for help. So I think understanding these questions and then understanding the answers to the best of our ability is important, because one is that we're able to get ourselves to a position where we are comfortable, and that comfort can turn into conviction, and then once turns into conviction, we're able to not only benefit from it ourselves, but we can also explain, or I won't use the word defend, but we can handle the objections that come to us, right? Now, in order for us to be able to answer these questions, I just put on that side of the board the concepts that we need to look at to be able to to answer these questions. Because if you just take a look at the way I've written the questions, if we are asking for help from Imam Ali, is asking for help Imam Ali alayhi salam, first of all, is it possible? No. If it is possible, things that are possible, is it okay for us to do? Right. So here, first thing to come up to is in this question is, even the word help. What does it mean for, the word help? What does it mean? Asking, you know, Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, right? Um, what is the definition of what is alive, right? What is dead? Okay. Um, what can we ask for help only in material? What is material things and what is rest, right? Um, um, how does it make it all right when we are supposed to? Now, this sort of thing is that we're supposed to ask only help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in our day-to-day life, we ask for help from other people, right? So when you said that you're only supposed to ask for help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but if you're asking Muhammad or Zaid or Fatima to help you, then Muhammad, Fatima, or Zaid are not Allah, then why are you asking for help? If you are in a classroom, you're asking help from the teacher. If you are, if your car breaks down, you have to take it to the mechanic. You have to ask for help from the mechanic. If you get sick, you have to go ask for help from a doctor. And an all mechanic or a doctor or a teacher, they're not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you just make a statement that you're only supposed to ask for help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then how are you going to make it all right by asking help from others that are not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So if you just take that we're only supposed to ask for help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that statement, there's other things in our lives that we can clearly see that we do need to ask for help from other people, right? So when you're just using simply just statement of logic, if the statement of logic that you've made through the basis that you are getting the conclusion by making another second statement, then if the first one can be flawed, then your second is flawed, and then your conclusion is going to be flawed. So a lot of the times when it comes to the concepts about asking for help or what is alive, we don't really go into the concepts. We just use some of the things that we've understood to them to be the statements that we will agree on, or we think that that is a logical statement, and based on that logical statement we'll come up with the second, and then we take a conclusion. So majority of our problem is actually here, and that is also because of what we are able to understand. Also, when we try to make others to understand, that's also one of our biggest problems. Okay, so to get rid of that problem, we need to get into, or we need to develop our minds and put the effort in trying to understand the concepts in Islam. When we say a concept, like, concept also is like, okay, how are you going to define something? So when it comes to what is alive and what is dead, the concept of being alive or the concept of being dead, uh, that needs a definition. And if we try to put our own minds to it and come up with a definition of what is alive and what is dead, then that our own definition of alive and dead is going to become that concept or that first initial statement of logic that we're going to utilize to come up with the second, what we do not understand, let's say, and then come to a conclusion, right? So the beauty about um, like when you look at the scientific method is they come up with a hypothesis, then the hypothesis is developed into some sort of theory. That theory is experimented on, and then after experimentation they will come, if the results are such that it is not random or there is actually some quantifiable results, the metadata, the probabilities are high enough, then they will say that this is how it is, right? Or they will define it. But the beauty with us is that with our way of thinking, which should have been this way, is that we already know what the truth is, right? We are already given the definitions. We already have been given the definition of what is alive and what is dead. We have already been given the definition about help. We're already given the definition of material or non-material. We've been given the definitions of what you know what is the purpose, right, of a guide or of a prophet. So we already have the truth. Now, what we have to do is we have to just understand that truth, right? We don't have to go and seek it. It's already there in the form of Quran. It's in the form of the sayings of Imam Masuna or the Holy Prophet. It already exists. All we have to do is try to understand it. And when we're trying to understand it, we need to, we need to come up, we need to train ourselves to understand concepts, right? Understand definitions. So once we understand concepts and definitions, then we can utilize our logic. And then once we utilize our logic, we will come to the right conclusion, right? So where should we go to find the definition of what does it mean to be alive? Or what does it mean to be dead, right? What does it mean for help? How is, in the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, help distributed? Okay. Do we need a representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the system to exist? Right? Or it can exist otherwise, right? Do we need the different things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created in the system? Or can we eliminate one thing and still the system exists? So, I mean, because of that we don't understand the concepts, right? Or what we understand the concepts is through the view that has overshadowed our thinking and our knowledge, which we went through yesterday, right? That whatever is fits the definition of what has been given to us through science is something alive, then we take that definition of alive and then we try to understand through that definition if Imam Ali is alive or not. And then through that definition, ourselves, the two, and the people who object, they will say that he's not alive, right? You have a grave of his, you go and you visit his grave in Najaf, he's not alive, he's dead, right? So this is this introduction that I'm giving to you is basically the basis, right, of getting to that point where we are right now. Okay, the Quranic definitions never really got part of our lives. It just stayed sort of either in the minds of the scholars and they never really trickled down to the general public, right? So I'm gonna So I'm going to erase the questions and then start on some of the definitions. Okay. And then we also have the questions about, about the fadail of Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. As I was mentioning to you that, the whole point was to go over the information in such a way that we can come to answers, right? And it's not that, all of the people, or the ones that you are listening right now or who are going to listen afterwards, that our mind is empty of this. It's not that it's empty. We have some sort of answers that, we're able to give. Okay. So now let's sort of get into the concept of perhaps what is alive. Yeah, that didn't work out. Right. Okay. So we have the verse in the Holy Quran where it says that our understanding is that do not consider the ones who have died in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or who have been killed in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be dead, but they are alive, and they are with their Lord, and they are seeking sustenance, and they're happy, right? They're receiving the sustenance from their Lord, they're happy, they're alive, and it's told to us not to consider them as dead. Okay, so now when you look at Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, he's struck with a poisonous sword on his head, and he passes away after 3 days. And Imam Hassan alayhi is there. His body is according to our sort of definition, the body is lifeless. And then the funeral procession of Imam Ali alayhi is done, and then his grave is found after after a very long time. Or we get people who get killed in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No. So if a dead body is in front of you, meaning that by the definition of what is alive, the doctor has now said that this person is no longer alive, is dead. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to us that when you see that body that has been killed in the way, in my way, don't consider it to be dead, but it is alive. Now here there's a conflict between the definition that we have of alive and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is alive. And He's telling us to correct ourselves, right? He's telling us that do not consider it this way. Do not think of it this way. Do not define life and death this way. Okay. And then we also have like verses in the Holy Quran where, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is specifically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to the Holy Prophet that, the people who are in the graves, they cannot understand you. You don't have to go and do tabligh to the people that are in the grave. Now, the Holy Prophet was not going and doing tabligh or telling the revelation in the graveyard. He was telling among the people. And there are many different verses that actually console the Holy Prophet, because people were not understanding what he was saying. People were not following what he was saying. People decided not to do what he was saying. And all of those things, the Holy Prophet would, kind of look inwardly and start, this process would start in his mind that, am I doing what is right? Is it me that I'm not able to explain? Right? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala consoles him to say that, whatever you say is wahi, is a revelation. Right? Whatever you are saying is a revelation, is what I am saying. So whatever you say is right. Right? Whatever you are more merciful to them than they are to their own selves. Right? Or these are the people whose there is a barrier in front of them and there is a barrier behind them, and they're not able to understand. or at other places that, their hearts have become diseased, right? So all of these verses that we have in the Holy Quran is describing the state of people, and in one of the state, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that these are dead. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, and His Prophet wants life for you, but these people don't want life. So here the definition of being dead could fit to someone that we think is alive, right? Let's say if you were to just put it in a sentence that, someone who cannot submit to truth, by definition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is dead. Or through looking at the traditions, that if a heart or if a soul is disconnected with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that heart and soul is actually dead, right? Is not alive. Or a community that does not do Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahy anil Munkar is a dead community, right? So when you go through the traditions and you go through the Quran, what you will get to verses and traditions that are very different than our own concept of what is alive, or even the concept that science gives of what life is. For example, virus, it does not fit all of the categories of what is supposed to be alive. Therefore, they said that that virus is dead. Okay, something which is not fitting by the definition of science to be alive. How is it possible that something which is dead, right, can bring the whole of the world, right, 200 plus countries, right, uh, 8 billion people almost, to a standstill? That something which is dead can influence in such a way that the borders are closed. Every single system that man has made has become weak and cannot control. How can something which is dead have so much strength that it actually could do this, and that never in history of humanity has so much influence has been done, where everyone is affected for months now? Something which by definition of science, or what our understanding is dead, right? Something which is dead, why are you taking precautions, right? Just like, why are you taking precautions of sanitizers and soaps and washing your hands, and by using the chemicals to kill something which is already dead, right? So when you just stay with that sort of understanding of what is alive and what is dead, then through that understanding, when you start tackling the questions of asking of help from Imam Ali alayhi salam, for some people it's not going to make sense. And for us, if it doesn't even make sense, but we've seen the results, we've seen that when we have asked Imam Ali alayhi salam for help, that we have received it. So we know that it is there, but we just don't know how it happens, right? So I gave you a definition yesterday. The life is basically an exchange of information. So whatever is alive will be store information, will be able to send, will be able to receive. And by doing that, influence in the system of the exchange of information. Okay. So by this definition, and then how is this information going to be transmitted? The information is transmitted through light. Okay. And light, we're just going to use the word energy. Okay. And in energy, we have one way of looking at energy is a sort of the material way of looking at energy, that it is something that will do a force to disturb the equilibrium, or will do an impact to disturb the equilibrium. The other is that it's just interaction to maintain equilibrium. So now if we say that, so the carrier of information, or how the information is carried, is through light and energy. So energy is vibrating and it has frequency. Again, those are the electromagnetic, let's say, electro and then magnetic waves. So electromagnetic waves is electricity and then magnetism, and then we have the whole electromagnetic spectrum, in which we have the visible light as one of them, and then the rest is like radio waves, gamma rays, X-rays, microwaves, and there's a whole spectrum, infrared rays. There's a whole spectrum of these electromagnetic waves. Okay, so when I started in the beginning, I mentioned to you that we already have something which is the truth. Okay, and then this thing which is the truth, we just have to now build our understanding towards it. And as we build our understanding towards it, and we start looking at from different viewpoints, or our perception changes, and we understand the different levels of existence, as we move along, we're moving closer to the truth, or the purest form of existence. And that sort of process of movement, you can look at another way of qurbatan ilallah. The more you stay in the material form or material understanding, the more you're going to be dense and limited, and the less progression you're going to make. And if you are going to make the progression, then that progression is not going to take you towards the truth or betterment or benefit, but rather is going to be detrimental and harmful. And that's why you see, because of the material point of view of the scientists and of all of the information that we have, it's not taking us towards betterment. It's not taking us towards the truth. It's not expanding of our understanding, but it's taking us towards extinction, destruction, right? Towards darkness, towards the world being in such a way that things don't make sense, or a world in a way which is like filled with oppression and losing the morals and the values and ethics of what it means to be a human being. That these morals and ethics of justice, liberty, and all this, that it's just words, because justice is not matter, and liberty is not matter, and freedom is not matter. These are non-matter things that are values and ethics. And when you make everything to be matter or materialistic viewpoint of the world, then justice does not really have a place. Justice will just be translated as the survival of the fittest, which is actually the concept of evolution, that only the fittest, the strongest will be able to survive, and the weakest will not be able to survive. So when you have this concept of justice through a material point of view, then of course you're going to have oppression. Of course you're going to have 80 people owning half of the wealth of the world, right? Of course you're going to have inequality socially, economically, and even in rights. So, but if you change your viewpoint of not matter, but something that is more closer to the reality of things, then you're going to start progressing. And you're not going towards extinction, but actually you're going towards expansion. You're going towards the truth, right? You're going more closer to actually what things are rather than going away from them, right? So now, if you just look at this, that means that anything which is alive is basically the exchange of information. It will be able to store information, and then if you can send and receive it as well, and influence in the system of the exchange of information, then that thing is alive. So now, when you look at the whole creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not by the definition of what is alive, by what we know, everything in the universe is alive. They say that there is no place in the universe that is actually dark. Right? Everywhere in the universe there is light. There is some form of waves, electromagnetic waves, in every part of the universe. And these electromagnetic waves become, they interact with each other. And when they're interacting with each other, they can store information, they can send it, they can receive it. They also make an influence in that system. Right? So by that definition, everything is alive. With what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, that yusabbihu lillahi ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard. That whatever is in the heavens and the earth, or whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, is doing tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it's doing tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it has to be alive. Right? And that alive is not going to be with our definition, because then this marker is alive too. Like in this marker, there is, if you go into atoms, there's atoms that have connected to create molecules, and those molecules have created that sort of chemistry. But if you look at the atom, it's a constant movement of positive, negative charges, like continuously rotating. And when you go look through the electron microscope, what you realize is that atom is actually nothing physical. It's just energy, tornado of energy that is actually moving so fast that is sort of creating this mass that we're able to perceive with our five senses. And through the gravity, you are getting this weight. And also, you're getting the different shapes and forms or dimensions. So now, that is based on the perception that we have. But it's not solid, it's basically light. Right? And this light is, because of its rotation, some of the light is able to reflect it, some of it is able to go through. Like your radio waves are all over your room. but they are able to pass through your walls and through things and through you, and they do not sort of reflect light or absorb light, so therefore they're invisible to us, but they're interacting in that system of exchange of information, right? So really, uh, you can use radio waves, which by our definition of known classical, I'll just use the word Newtonian science, okay, or classical science. By our definition um, of classical science or Newtonian science, radio waves are not alive, but they are actually carrying information. They're carrying sound. They're carrying, you know, um, you can make the radio waves as a carrier, which it can transmit, from one signal, one tower to the other. So now this concept of being alive, the radio waves are alive, everything is alive. Now, in this concept, the information is being exchanged, is send and receive, right? And is able to influence. And while it's able to do that, because it is alive, this information is going to interact and influence. Therefore, the concept of help or utilizing or use or means can become clear. So, can you seek help from radio waves? Yes. How can you seek help from radio waves if they're not alive, but they are alive? Right? Can these radio waves help you? Yes. In what sense? In showing you the different signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that you can get to another sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which can get to another sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to get to the truth. Right? So the biggest sign, and you have that in Dua Iftitah as well, and Imam Ali has said that too, that the biggest sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Imam Ali, right? Or Imam Masumin are the biggest sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning in them is the direction that we can take to get to the different points in our journey, to get to that perception of the true reality. So they can become means for us in every single aspect of our life. If you take the definition of life differently now, to have that perception change and move forward to another point, to another point, to another point, where you get to that ultimate truth, which is Allah. Right? So then when you sort of understand that, then and there's more to be said about the definition of being alive. But then you can sort of get closer to say that, okay, when I ask for help from Imam Ali, this help is coming in this system of creation through the different levels of vibration and frequency, where everything is alive, sending and receiving, influencing the other. So therefore, there is really no concept of time and space. So if there's no concept of time and space, then it doesn't matter if something existed 1400 years ago, or something exists today, or something exists in the future. So is it possible for something to be at that particular level where for that thing, time and space does not exist? And when time and space does not exist for that thing, then that thing is able to influence out of the bounds of space and time, out of the bounds of 1400 years or Hijaz or Kufa or Medina. And this is only a very little bringing things together. It's very, very shallow still. There's a lot, even things that are deeper. Like, but at least what happens is when we hear for example, one of the traditions which I might have mentioned it to you before, but I'll mention it again, is that you know a person comes from another city to visit the Imam Ali alayhi salam, and when he comes over, his face was a bit yellow, like perhaps mine is at the moment. Um, so Imam looked at his face and said that it seems like you're not well, right? And the person said, yes, Imam, I'm not feeling well. Imam Ali alayhi said to him that, when you get sick, we get sick, right? He did not object to that. He just took it as sort of symbolic that Imam Ali alayhi likes him or loves him, and he likes or loves Imam Ali alayhi. So when two people love each other empathetically or sympathetically, they can kind of say, okay, symbolically, that when you get sick, I get sick, or I feel your pain when you are in pain. And then Imam continues, he says, when you get happy, we get happy, right? When you get sad, we get sad, right? And then Imam says to him that when you sneeze, right? When you sneeze, we say Yarhamukumullah. Like, when someone sneezes, they're supposed to say Alhamdulillah. And then the person who hears it is supposed to say Yarhamukumullah. Alhamdulillah, you already know, all praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Yarhamukumullah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon you. So when Imam said that, the person just objected. Here he could not understand. He said, Imam, like, how is it possible that I'm in my own city? So he lived far away from Imam. He said, how is it possible that I sneeze there, right? How far can the sneeze travel through sound waves? Not far, right? For example, if I was to sneeze right now, how far is it going to travel in this room of mine, small room? It's not even going to go upstairs. Yeah? My family's not even going to know that I sneezed. But if this sound wave of sneezing can be used to put it on top of the radio waves, right? And then send this information through radio waves, through the whole network, right? Which the camera is doing now. Then you, in England, right, thousands of miles away, you can hear me sneeze. And then in your own houses, right, as many thousands of miles away, I can say Alhamdulillah, and you can say Yarhamakumullah. And if this was a two-way interaction, right, and I could see you, and I could hear you, if that information was carried over through radio waves, then I can hear you say, Yarhamakumullah, right? So Imam said to him that, for us, time and space doesn't exist. Or he said that for us, distance or space does not exist. Or for us, you can put it in today's words, For us, time and space doesn't exist. So what if Imam Ali alayhi salam was aware of this sort of network of exchange of information through different carriers of waves, electromagnetic waves, that were in that are interacting with each other, sending and receiving information, and also influencing too, right? And he was connected to that. And regardless of where the person happened to be, who loved him, who liked him, he could actually, through that network of information, feel or know. Now, did that stop when Imam Ali alayhi salam was martyred? It would stop only if this exchange of information was being done on the level of that sort of physical perception of this body and matter. But as you can see, on the physical level, that is not how the information is being exchanged. So if I sneeze on the physical level, this sneeze is not going to even, like, although the sound waves are going to continue, but the ears of my family is not going to be able to hear it, right? So their knowledge or their ability that Imam could be at one place, at one time 40 different places. And there are traditions that, um, you know, tells us that actually did happen in history, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying to us that, okay, on the physical level where this body is lying and it's been killed in my way, I don't want you to think that it's dead, because it's not dead, it's alive. And the level of existence that this thing has, right? Yani, by the definition that I have of things that are alive is alive. And if you were to now maybe fit into this sort of definition, that Imam Ali alayhi is existing at every level of perception that we have. And we also exist at every different level uh, of existence. And so someone that exists at the same different levels of existence, these two can interact with each other, influence each other. And therefore, help can be asked. And the giver of help can help in every single aspect. Right? So once you expand your sort of concepts and try to understand with the already what is the truth, okay, then maybe perhaps we will be able to come closer to the actual understanding. And okay, I'll just give you one more. There's a lot of information, but I'll give you another one. And then again, like when I use technology or the different inventions that are made, they're just signs, right? Like they're just signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you can search this up as well. That your MIT has developed a band that will go around your forehead and in the back, which will be connected to your phone through Bluetooth. And whatever you will think, 93% accuracy. This band will be able to communicate without any wires, right? with your phone. So if you thought, um, search for restaurants near me, you didn't say it. You didn't actually say it. You just thought it. And the device picks up that electrical impulse and then sends this information through Bluetooth. And on your physical phone, which you consider to be physical because you can hold it in your hands, you can touch it, feel it, smell it, taste it, right? In that phone, uh, Google is going to come up and is going to search that information, right? Now, so far, the exchange of information going back into your mind and having the information told to you in your thoughts, I don't believe that is available as a feature there yet. But your electrical impulses that you generated with the mind, which is non-matter, with your consciousness, right? Subconscious, conscious mind, right? Remember? From your mind, which is non-material, which is not bound by space or time. Like if you've understood a concept, if you understood it 5 years, when you were 5 years old, or now that you are 14 or 60, it's still there. It's not bound by time or space. From there, information came down into what we know as physical. It was transmitted through different other waves, and it influenced something which is matter with our perception of five senses. So here is an example that something which we consider to be non-matter, which is not alive, which does not obey the laws of physics, of space and time and 3D dimensions, is able to influence matter, right? So now if in my mind, I ask Imam Ali alayhi salam for help, and he helps me within that level of my mind or my soul, if you want to call it. I haven't gotten into the concept of soul yet. Because there he's connected to me. It's not, there the connection is not bound by space or time. There the information is not being carried by sound waves. No. There the information is carried by many other waves. And through that connection, I get something that I need that is going to influence matter. Now, through that, my physical world can be influenced, right? So let's say I was about to fall, and my mother said, Ya Ali mother. Now here, time and space doesn't exist. And I didn't fall. Or we have someone who's ill, and we ask Imam Ali for help, to help this person in the physical world to get well. I mean, you can accept the MIT band, how from non-matter metaphysical things get transmitted information and influence matter, your phone. But here, okay, so just know that all of the Imam Masumin, they're alive. The Holy Prophet ﷺ is alive. And this life that they have is based on the true definition of life, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows and He has given to us as guidance. through Quran, through the Holy Prophet, through Imam Hassan. And we're all connected to them. It's just the level of our awareness that we're not able to see the connection. But you are the same way as that man who lived away from Imam Ali. That when you get sad, Imam Ali actually feels that he gets sad. When you get happy, Imam Ali feels that. When you get sick, Imam Ali feels that. It's just that we're not aware. And because we can bring our awareness higher, but we keep ourselves limited to just our five senses. Therefore, we never progress. And the pain, one is of physical body, and then this also information of pain translates in every single level of our existence. Right? Say that when Imam Ali was hit with that poisonous sword, when the wound was so deep that Imam Hassan came over and saw his father, drenched in blood. And Imam Hassan held his father, and as Imam Hassan is seeing this, Imam Hassan starts crying, and he cried in a way that from his eyes the tears fell on the cheeks of Imam Ali. And Imam opens his eyes and looks at Imam Hassan and says, don't cry. If you could see what I can see, Imam says that the Holy Prophet is there when we fought the war. All of the Anbiya are there. The angels are there. Why it becomes so sad is that the status of Imam Ali was not recognized by the people around him. Instead of being at his feet to acquire the help, to receive the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they chose to disobey him, to not recognize him, to hurt him. And this feelings can be felt today after 1400 years. It gets us as if we travel back in time. It gets us in the Masjid of Kufa. It makes us as if to see and to relive that. And it is as if we can relive it any time. And even though 1400 years have passed, but for us, the ones who love Imam Ali, it's not just on his shahadat that we can relive this. We can relive this anytime we want. You just have to go in your mind, put your focus and attention towards that. And most of the time we need someone to remind us. Therefore, when Masahib are recited, that becomes a vehicle for us to travel back in time and feel those emotions. And it is actually a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we're able to do that. You know, people's relatives pass away, but when they think about them, they don't have the same feelings we do. That indicates that somehow, one way or another, even if I don't understand, I'm connected to Imam Ali. And he's aware of me, of wretched, lowly, nothing of a thing. He's aware of me. He's aware of my emotions. He's aware of my health. He's aware of my circumstances. He's aware of my actions. And it's a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He's bestowed this upon us. He's chosen you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take the enemies of Imam Ali out of His special mercy. May they remain in the fires of hell for eternity. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the wisdom, the courage, the knowledge to be able to stand with our Imam of the time, and that we become those individuals who will recognize his status, who will not repeat the same mistakes of the people of the past, that the Imam of the time can be trusted to us. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wal-'asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa 'amilu s-salihati wa tawassaw bil-haqq.